Hi everyone, Professor Wills here from Pasadena City College. Well, we've been talking a lot about the art of the early 20th century, and what we're going to do is explore Surrealism today. I have a couple of artists I want to introduce you to who really start to explore some of the tenets of what was initially a literary movement and quickly was embraced by these avant-garde artists looking for new pathways to express themselves. So what you find with Surrealism are images that can be familiar but not familiar, kind of haunting, eerie, mysterious, ambiguous. These are the characteristics of surrealism, much like those dreams you might have perhaps after eating, too many slices of pizza on a Friday night. This is what we're finding that is attractive to surrealist artists. Not so much what they see before their eyes, in the conscious world, but things that might be derived from the subconscious, the dream world. And that has a lot to do with the equal exploration of those realms from psychoanalysis. Just think Sigmund Freud, right? Tapping into the subconscious mind and the dreamscape, so to speak. So this is what these artists are exploring. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about with our first artist. Moving on to our PowerPoint here, let's meet Giorgio di Chirico. All right, aligning my slideshow for you. Here we go. Di Chirico is from Italy, trained as an artist up in Germany in Munich. And then became part of the Surrealist art movement. And like I say on my PowerPoint slide, he was drawn to the world of dreams and the unconscious expressed in art. And one of his most well-known paintings is called The Song of Love from 1914. This is a painting that was inspired sort of by the late afternoon time where, again, the sun's rays are elongated as the sun begins to set. At the end of the day, shadows are more dramatic. And Di Chirico was, walking in the city of Turin, one of Italy's beautiful cities, and it's observing one of the squares in the heart of town and how that light looked, how it impacted architecture. Yet this painting isn't meant to be documenting that specific moment as he experienced it with his own eyes from a certain vantage point. This is more of a collection of perceptions and ingredients that are ambiguous, or maybe they are very Italian. Again, nothing specific. It's a different kind of, more of a collection of his sensations. You have, for instance, in the center of the painting, a wall-like structure featuring an oversized head based on a very famous statue at the Vatican of Apollo, a Greek god. So it's got this kind of classical world look, but extremely large in its scale. Adjacent to it hung something quite ordinary and strange, a rubber glove. Before that, on the ground, is a green ball or orb. On the far right, you see a series of arches kind of referencing urban life and architecture, as well as in the distance here, you can just make out the smokestack of a steam train behind a brick wall. So, elements of urban life, of the natural world with the sunlight, references to our history, but then the ordinary. Again, none of it kind of gels together in a cohesive theme. It's more of a kind of a collection of objects that are strange by intention. And again, with sort of this crisp rendering that emphasizes form and shape. There's no techniques of perspective or atmospheric perspective or anything like that, right? To give you more of a traditional description of a view of a town square. Think how interesting this painting would be to compare to Ambrosio Lorenzetti's proto-Renaissance painting of the effects of good government, that panoramic scene of the town of Siena, which was much more documentary on some level. This more derived from the subconscious and the felt experiences of this Italian surrealist artist. All right, moving on to our next surrealist artist. Let's take a look at another painting. And let's meet Salvador Dali. That might be a name you've heard of already in the history of art. He had a big personality, a famous, kind of elaborate mustache. I spent some time in Los Angeles, I hear, enjoying rubbing elbows with the Hollywood elite of the early days of the golden age of Hollywood. This is his probably one of his most famous paintings, called The Persistence of Memory, from 1931. Salvador Dali was Spanish by heritage, but he too was attracted to the tenets of surrealism. And what you find with this painting is something very much like what we found with Chirico, where you have this sort of haunting view of kind of an otherworldly place. You have a distant shoreline that's so crisply rendered. You feel like you are, on a different planet altogether with no atmosphere, kind of like those images you see of Mars. Where the air is so thin that, it looks otherworldly in its view. But what's really interesting are some of the objects in the foreground. And what you find is sort of this amorphous life form. Is it a manatee? And yet what's up with this giant, eyelashy kind of element here? Or is the eye up here and the mouth open here? Again, it's ambiguous and mysterious and a little haunting. Lying across this being is a pocket watch, which was more common before wristwatches, and yet it's sort of melted or laying in a strange way against the curve of that being. You see additional kind of melted looking pocket watches on a kind of barren tree branch here. Another one, melted along this strange block-like shape. And then finally, right here on the far left-hand side of the painting, you can see a pocket watch that's face down, so we can't read the numbers on the dial, and it's covered in ants. I know this, I'm lecturing right now in the summertime. I know that's sort of a common problem in households in the summer, and ants famously ruin every picnic, right? But here they seem to be consuming the watch. If you look closely on the other pocket watch, you can see a fly here as well. So flies and ants, they're associated with decay. They kind of help break down those things that die in nature. So it's as if those are predators, are contributing to the end of time. So the persistence of memory, it's about, things that are more derived from the subconscious mind, from the dream world, with haunting allegories. Is it, a rumination on, the end of time, without using the conventional skull as a symbol, like we saw with so many artists in art history, whether Masaccio or Holbein and others, right? Again, this is something that some say Salvador Dali was inspired by watching a wheel of camembert cheese melt on his table under the hot summer sun. Some say that's what inspired this melted object look to this particular painting. But in any event, you find that Surrealism, tapping into the subconscious, tapping into things that are familiar and yet in unexpected and haunting combinations, is a way to invite different ruminations on modern life. Thanks for joining me.